Good morning, and welcome to the 2014 DuPage County Regional Business Outlook. We couldn't have pulled this conference together without the support of our presenting sponsors, the same sponsors who have been presenting this event for the last 5 years: Ice Miller, Mesero Financial, and Choose DuPage. I'd also like to thank PNC Bank, who is our raffle sponsor. Today marks the 5th year this economic outlook has taken place, and so much has changed. The first year we had 150 registrants. This year we had almost 800. This has become truly the premier event, not only just in suburbia, but in the Chicagoland region.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome to DuPage County. We deeply appreciate all of you taking some time out of your day to learn more about what's going on here. Through our county initiative known as ACT, Accountability, Consolidation, and Transparency, we're getting the most value for our tax dollars. The cost of doing business here is lower. When it makes sense, we're eliminating or consolidating units of government. Our initiative is saving tens of millions of dollars in DuPage through shared services, joint purchasing, consolidation, and cost reduction measures. I'm proud to say that we have balanced the budget without raising taxes or jeopardizing critical county services that our residents depend on. As a result, we've retained a AAA bond rating here in the county. We've worked very hard at attracting and retaining corporate centers and supporting small business. In DuPage County, our unemployment rate remains stable and significantly lower than the rest of the state and the surrounding counties at just over 7%. Now, to put that in perspective, unemployment in both Cook and Kane counties are over 9%. Lake is at 10%. Will counties is just under 10% unemployment. DuPage County is a regional center for manufacturing growth. Our measure of manufacturing activity is up 5% at 97%. And for the first time in recent history, our industrial vacancy rate is lower than that of Cook County and the city of Chicago's, once considered to be the manufacturing hub of the Midwest. As you know, manufacturing jobs create even more jobs than any other employment sector in our local economy. Our office vacancy rate is down this quarter as well. Additionally, in DuPage County, we're planning for the region's future economic needs. We are proud to be part of that effort that got shovels in the ground on the O'Hare Western Access Project. We believe that this much-needed roadway will effectively leverage the economic engine that is O'Hare Airport, creating or supporting as many as 65,000 permanent jobs by 2040 and providing an economic boost to the cities and towns on the western side of the airport. We plan for this highway to provide important access to our communities so that commuters and tourists could pull off the roadway, spend some time and money in these local municipalities. Of course, no talk of economic development these days is complete without mention of digital and advanced manufacturing incubators and innovation centers. We here in DuPage County are planning today to foster tomorrow's entrepreneurial growth in DuPage. Choose DuPage is working with the startup community and the existing business community on Rev3, a first-of-its-kind, suburban-based comprehensive innovation center that will serve as co-working, prototyping, development, and incubating site for new and existing businesses alike to launch or accelerate their business. With a focus on both the digital and manufacturing markets, we are confident that Rev3 will help invigorate an already vibrant economy in DuPage County.
Thank you. It's truly an honor to be here today. I am thrilled to have done this for several years and thrilled to see it grow. I wish the economy grew as fast as this speech did. The U.S. economy came to a standstill in the first quarter. We got basically a goose egg on growth. That said, we now do know that we're going to catch up, and we're already beginning to see it. It doesn't provide much solace that we're starting to see the catch up for those retailers and restaurants that already saw a hard time in January and February. It was insult to injury to have the harsh weather we did, and some actually shut their doors. On the other side of it, We saw doors open in other places of the country where people were migrating to, but that wait staff that lost earnings here is not too thrilled that they transferred it to earnings elsewhere. As we catch up, we're already beginning to see it in manufacturing, construction activity, and most importantly, employment. The April employment report of almost 300,000 jobs created in the U.S. economy showed a vast tapestry of both fundamental demand in the U.S. economy and catch up from earlier shortfalls. We're also seeing something that you're seeing in DuPage, and that is we're seeing investment finally come back. Investment, after really being dormant for a long time, we're finally seeing something that's more animal spirit-like out there in the private sector, where corporations, CEOs at the Business Roundtable, during the height of the shutdown, I don't want to do anything, and I don't blame them, but now that we have a whole 21-month budget in Washington, they're willing to put their money where their mouth is, and for the first time, and I think it's because we saw a little bit of an uptick in growth as well. They have hope for the future, orders have picked up, and we now see a commitment by CEOs to want to invest in our future. That's really important, make long-term investments that instead of just repairing the equipment they have, they're willing to buy new equipment and expand. I got a little more optimistic because I'm part of the baby boom. We wanted to change the world. We did. We rule now. We got a lot of work to do. Now we got the millennials behind us. And a lot of people don't think those millennials are good enough to do anything. Those millennials include my children, and they are good enough. They include your kids, and they can change the world. And not only can they change the world, they want to. I was privileged to be at a wedding over the holidays, and I'm stunned that as part of the marriage vows among two millennials was they thought in the process of being married, they owed it to the world to make it a better place. We owe it to them to do the same. Thank you.
In fiscal policy, as we all know, capital goes to where it's treated best. I heard one of our congressmen or state reps say that they raised the speed limit in Illinois from 55 to 65. Now people can leave Illinois faster. That's not what we want. But you do have to realize that capital goes to where it's treated best. And capital creates jobs. The good news, we're in a global economy. We can sell products all over the world. We can receive products from all over the world. The bad news is we're in a global economy. So whatever happens anywhere affects us. Whatever happens in the Ukraine affects us. So it's very complicated. And I guess the other point in here, just to give a perspective, is the financial markets, the stock markets, the equity markets are the pulse of everything that's going on in the world. As we look at the economy, we could see that the U.S. economy, we are coming out of this. We do see auto sales coming back. We do see a number of factors that are increasing. The housing kind of hindered. I don't know. People, you know, the mortgage rates went up by maybe 25 basis points. And I'm thinking, gee whiz, when I bought a house at 10%, I thought I was 10% mortgage rate. I thought that was pretty good, you know, and now at 4 3/4, people are getting nervous. That's, you know, something's wrong here. I don't understand that. But one of the real critical items that we're watching very carefully is CapEx, capital expenditures by corporations. There's a lot of money on the sidelines. And I think some of the fiscal policies that we have in place right now, it makes it very nervous for businessmen to invest in the future in here. So CapEx has been very subdued in here. And if we see that sort of tick up, that could accelerate the growth of the economy going forward. You know, for investors, should you be in the emerging markets or shouldn't you be in the emerging markets? It's no longer that. Remember, they're not emerging markets anymore. They've emerged. They're here. That's a misnomer. 50% of global GDP will be from the emerging markets in about 10 or 15 years. So it's not so much to be in emerging markets or not to be, it's which emerging markets you should be in. So you have to be very selective there. So we're positive on the emerging markets, but not as a whole, but very selective in that area. So from an asset allocation perspective, whether you're 50-50, 50% bonds, and this is risk tolerance, where should you be? You know, and I know this is probably hard to read, but we're a bit worried about the bond market because we think interest rates are going up in here. So, and plus there's no yield there. So we look at other ways to be in the fixed income area. Some of the alternative investments, whether they're long, short, or convertibles, provide some of the safety of the bond market, but not the interest rate risk. On the equity side of the equation, we think growth stocks in here, growth at a reasonable price, not the very high momentum stocks, but growth-oriented type of companies we think are very positive in here. So from an asset allocation point of view, I think one of the things you need to focus on is focus on your own risk tolerance. Don't let sort of the talking heads, so to speak, on TV get you in and out of the market. As many analysts have tracked individual investors coming in and out of the market, they seem to panic out and then they can't get in again. So it's really, I think, makes sense to think through the near-term volatility, especially what's happening right now. Think a bit of longer term. I think we have to think globally as well. There's opportunities all over the world, and having a global perspective is very good. Obviously, diversification is always a risk metric that we need to do, and you do need to, you know, rebalance. Like in the emerging market, should I be in? Shouldn't I be in? That's really important. And again, you know, we're going to have an election cycle that's going to impact the market. Every number that comes out seems to impact the market. Again, I tend to want to think through that near-term volatility, think a bit longer term, and we think that will work out over the long term too. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Bell control.
So when I was asked to speak about tax in 10 minutes or less, I thought to myself, what would my title be? So I decided in my discussion on federal and Illinois taxes, I would say tax reform. Will you be a winner or will you be a loser? So in my 10 minutes, think about yourself. Think about your company, but I would say think a little bit broader as well. Think of your suppliers and your vendors, because we're all in this one together. And let's talk a little bit about tax reform and figure out if we're going to be a winner or a loser. So I wanted to compare, because when you look at individuals and you look at corporations, what happens if you are a business owner in a pass-through or if you have a C corporation? And I was giving today's rates and what has to do with the proposal draft. As you can see, the rates are a little bit all over the place. So it already starts in this discussion today. Are you a winner in the tax rates, or are you going to have some challenges? A pass-through is a partnership or an S corporation. And what you see in the proposal draft, there's some differences. And how pass-through entities are being treated, if you're cash method, if the type of taxes that you have could have very different deductions, income, and I would also say tax rates. So that was all federal. But what about international? Because the whole purpose of talking about tax reform is to make us competitive. I mean, as a country, when we look and compare ourselves with the other OECD countries, we continue to slip. We have got to make ourselves as a country much more competitive so that we're not fighting amongst our states to try to get business, but we as a country are pulling together and really pulling business into the US. So one of the things that really does come about in the discussion draft is what if you have international operations? And this is where we move from having a worldwide tax on all your income, no matter where it's earned, to having a territorial system, which a lot of the OECD has already gone to. Now there's some upfront payment. It's not just get it for free, so there is a little bit of an upfront payment to it. But this is one from a discussion draft standpoint that has gotten a lot of support from companies and businesses that have global operations. So I moved here 2 years ago. Grant Thornton transferred me. Our headquarters is in Illinois. We have offices in Chicago, Schaumburg, and Oak Brook. And when I moved here, all I heard about was the winters. And the first winter 2 years ago was fabulous. Everybody told me I couldn't claim Illinois residency because it was so mild. This year, everybody asked me, please, please don't move, don't move. We love it here. Even with this accent, we love being in Illinois. But on April 30th, I saw an article, and it was a Gallup poll. And the question that was posed to people in all 50 states was, if given a chance, would you move from your state? This is a poll you don't want to be number one in. So the bottom three, Montana, Hawaii, Maine. Number one, Illinois, at 50%. And what they did in the article was they then broke it down and they said, you know, what would make you move? Now, of course, we got to be blunt. I mean, weather, you know, was 17% of the respondents. But the other pieces had nothing to do with weather, which we can't control, and everything to do with what we can control. And a piece of that was business, quality of life, and taxes. Because when it comes to tax reform, whether it's in Washington, D.C., or it's in Springfield, Illinois, you have a voice. Understand the impacts of the conversation to your own pocketbook, to your business, and definitely the legislators want to hear the real life stories of the impacts. And they love hearing it from their own districts because it really brings it to life. So I would definitely leave you with tax reform. Thinking about this last 10 minutes, are you a winner or are you a loser? Thank you.
Today I've been given the task of talking about the future of healthcare, not only in DuPage County, but in the nation. Given 10 minutes to talk about healthcare reform is like limiting Dan Cronin to 10 minutes to talk about fiscal accountability and greater efficiencies in the county. Dan laughed, okay? The first issue and trends come straight out of the DuPage County I Plan. And we are following this plan in order to improve the quality of healthcare throughout DuPage County. The top 10 list begins, again, in no particular priority. Number 10 is the issue of mental health throughout the state of Illinois. 1 out of 5 of us will experience a serious mental health issue during our lifetime. Now for the panel, don't worry, I've got that percentage covered up here. Many of you are aware of our Linden Oaks Hospital, which is led by Gina Sharp, who is here today. And what you may not know is that Linden Oaks has partaken in a program where we are actually training numerous business leaders in our community to recognize the early signs of mental health distress. The purpose of this then is to enable those of us who might recognize these signs to get early intervention and get individuals who require help to the right resource. Is the growth of accountable care organizations, or ACOs. Expect more growth in ACOs. What these are is basically bringing together hospitals and physicians to do those very things I recently highlighted, and that is to combine to provide resources that will actually give you excellent health care, but at a more efficient and lower cost. And number one is bending the cost curve. Quality measures are improving nationwide, and we've helped slow the growth in healthcare costs in the country. I know people have many opinions about why that's happening, but healthcare reform is certainly a factor. Even as our economy continues to mend, I expect that we'll be able to continue to bend that cost curve and provide services at a lower and more efficient level. Call me an optimist, but I'm seeing it firsthand in our own system. As we've merged, we've seen economies of scale that have reduced cost, and we've also learned from each other how to provide top-in-class, best quality services across DuPage County. We're partnering with our physicians more than ever, and through this partnership, we will all be able to lower the cost trend in healthcare. I am optimistic that we will weather this storm, and in fact, in DuPage County, I believe we have some of the most phenomenal healthcare that you will find anywhere in the United States. Projections are that many hospitals will close, but I truly believe that those who are innovative and adapt to the changes will find that they will flourish and survive in the future. And that's my top 10. Thank you very much.
I want to talk today in the theme that many of the speakers have already addressed and established about the future and trends that we are likely to see for the state. And I'd like to talk about it in three sort of different parts. I want to talk about narrative, the narrative about the state, and where we see change and transformation in that narrative, perhaps more balanced narrative, we would argue. I also want to talk about substance in terms of where we see the vision for economic development, where we think we need to make investments to drive economic development with the final goal of job creation, business growth. And then, and I appreciate, I think both Diane and Doreen set up a very good closing discussion on the budget and where we stand right now in Springfield and how that affects the future and those other two parts that I want to talk about. I think if you're like me and you consume media about the state of Illinois, you've probably been inundated with a lot of negative narrative about our business climate. And we understand that. There are a lot of challenges. There have been a lot of issues to address and deal with. But I think it's important, when you talk about narrative, you have to talk about facts. And for all of us here, a negative narrative about the state doesn't help. It's not productive. It can be a self-fulfilling cycle even when facts may differ with that narrative. Job creation. Created 250,000 plus new private sector jobs in this state since February 2010. That's when we began to experience the recovery here in Illinois. That's second only to Ohio in the Midwest. Those are facts. Those are real numbers. Those are real jobs. A couple of other areas where we ought to be talking about it and thinking about the optimism and momentum that we have. Exports. Every year now, we exceed $60 billion in exports. $60 billion. 2012, it was $68 billion. 2013 dropped a little bit to $65 billion. Those are records pre-recession or post. Incredible economic growth and activity in our exports. So substantively, what are we going to do to drive growth going forward? How do we build on that? How do we build on the areas that I'm talking about where we see positive trends? And here I just want to highlight and preview for you very broadly and succinctly what we believe we need to talk about in our economic development plan. This is a 5-year economic development plan that will be delivered in July to you, to the legislature, to the public, as an articulation of our vision of what we think we need to be doing over the next 5 years to drive job growth. Right? And broadly speaking, it boils down to this. There are essential tools to economic development. I talk about these all the time, every time I talk. I will talk about them until I'm not in this job, because they don't change. They're immutable. 5 tools. And I'll go through them. But we need to improve these tools, refine these tools, augment these tools, expand these tools. And then we need to apply these tools to specific challenges, unique challenges to Illinois, that once we're able to do that, we unleash the growth in the private sector. And the fundamental premise here is that the state is not a job creator. We are not going to create jobs. When we're operating at our best, we are establishing an ecosystem that allows all of you to create jobs. We really and truly believe that. So what we're investing in is the ecosystem. If we're going to lower costs, it's going to be through innovation. And to do that, you have to invest. You have to invest in your people. There's no other way around it. So from our perspective, these are fundamental decisions. Fundamental decisions about the course of economic development, fundamental decisions about the health of our economy, fundamental decisions about the health of your businesses, the availability of a workforce to drive your businesses and their success going forward. And we welcome that debate, and we welcome the honesty and the transparency that goes with it. Thank you.
But one of the strengths of, I think, a community and a vibrant business community is the fact that not only we do well in our businesses, but we do good by bringing and helping our communities. So it's a pleasure for me to be here. I have had a very interesting and different sort of career and still continue to try to be challenged. Obviously, before this latest opportunity that came before me, being Chief of Staff to the President of the United States was probably the greatest business honor that I had, or business opportunity, professional opportunity that I had, pardon me. And it was a great pleasure, especially to serve a president from Illinois and somebody who, in a very difficult year, 2011, we started, matter of fact, the day before I got started, actually went on the payroll, there was an assassination attempt of Congresswoman Giffords. We went from that to the Arab Spring, which I do believe probably in many of our lifetimes would be the most important thing, the most dramatic change that's going on in our world and affecting us. China is important, obviously, and the economic impact of that. But what has happened as a result of that spring of 11, the Arab Spring, I think is really, we have not felt the true impact of that, and it's not obviously anything but negative so far. We went from that, the Japanese tsunami, the earthquake and tsunami. I had to wake up the President of the United States in the middle of the night and say, there's a little wave coming towards Hawaii, knowing that that's where he was born and spent much of his life. I thought he should know, in case he read about it in the papers. And then we went from that to, obviously, the Osama bin Laden raid. We had almost a shutdown of the government. We went from that to the Libya excursion, from that to the debt ceiling and the downgrade of the U.S. economy. So it was a great fun year for me. And this is the greatest challenge to government and those who govern, and it doesn't matter what level. People want answers because you could Google an answer. So where's the airplane? You must know where the airplane is. Tell us where the airplane is. Well, they don't know where the airplane is, and so the ability of government, and I used to say, even including around the Osama bin Laden stuff, let's slow down here to tell what actually happened, because until you get the facts, you really don't know the answers. And there is this incredible push for immediate answers on a problem or an event. And sometimes it is best to say, and I remember when my father was alive, now he could get away with it, I guess, no comment, because I don't know yet, okay? Or no comment. Why? Because I don't want to comment. That was his best line. But you could not get in trouble by saying that. Maybe they didn't like it, but you didn't get in trouble. And you didn't have to backpedal, as we often had to do. But it is a tough time to be executives in any business. It's a tough time to lead in this world of ours. And in government, it is very challenging. And for those men and women who are out there in government, in politics, whether it's elected office or appointed office, they really are giving a lot, and it is a very tough life. It's very rewarding, don't get me wrong, nobody's forced into it. So it is rewarding, but it is a tough life, and it's getting tougher and tougher, and it is getting tougher and tougher to govern in this new world that we're into. So I'm optimistic. I really am about Illinois. I'm optimistic about Chicago, DuPage, our future Americas. All of these people, run around. Our best days are behind us and all that stuff. That's a lot of hooey. China's, really had an incredible run of 35 years, but as they're maturing, they've got lots of problems. They've been running so fast that at some point they got to turn around and look and say, okay, what's happening behind us? And a lot of what's going on behind that front runner is very challenging.